Okay, so this is part 2 to adjustable axle plates. So we're going to do an adjustment here that more relates to the vertical adjustability. So changing our rear seat to floor height, whether that's for axle position for propulsion ergonomics, or you're changing your rear seat to floor height to achieve some level of seat slope. So what you're going to need for this adjustment is you're going to need a 5-inch wrench, or 5/8 of an inch wrench for this silver threaded piece here, and then you're going to need 1 1/8 wrench for the back nut. So what I'm going to do is we're going to use crescent wrenches for the purpose of the demonstration, but I'm going to hold on to the 2 flat pieces that are on the sides of that threaded silver axle receiver component. And then on the back side of here, there's going to be a black nut, and that's where you're going to use your 1 1/8 wrench to loosen. So what I'll do is once I get that on there is I'm going to loosen that piece on the back only. So we're only holding this piece here to stabilize that axle. On the back component here, we are going to loosen off that back nut. So we're going to counterclockwise that black nut on the back until it loosens off. And eventually you're going to loosen it to a point where you're actually going to be able to do it by hand. And we keep spinning the back piece off while we hold this piece straight there. And once you remove that piece, what you're going to notice is that you'll have the black nut that comes off, but you're also going to have a locking washer. Okay, so that locking washer is going to go on there as well. And once I've loosened that off, you'll see that I'll actually be able to remove the entire axle receiver on there. And then from this point here, we can change the different heights that we want by changing the hole or the position on the actual upright here to reflect the different seat to floor heights that we want to achieve. On the move specifically, you have 1-inch increments in between each of the bolt holes. On your A6, you have 1/2-inch increments. So when you look at the A6, it's going to look very similar to this piece here. But if we actually take these 2 bolts out here and these 2 bolts out here and flip that upside down, that's how you're going to get your 1/2-inch increments. So you have to flip the piece upside down if you want to achieve your 1/2-inch increments on there. So once I've decided which hole I want for my rear axle height, then I'll put the bolt back through. And what you'll notice is that on each side of these pieces here, there's actually little ridges that sit a little bit higher than the actual plate itself. And we want to get this black nut so it sits in between those, not on top of, but in between those, so it doesn't actually rotate there. And then on the back side, we're going to start by putting our locking washer on. And then take the black nut and thread it on by hand. Now the biggest thing you want to watch for at this point is 1, making sure that that black nut on the front stays inside of the 2 ridges on either side here, and 2, that this little silver threaded bolt here is the same on this side as it is on the other side that we adjust. So I'll count the rings on that silver piece there, and on this one I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I can see 9 on this side, so when I do the adjustment on the other side, I just want to make sure that it's the same width, so you don't have one that's wider out this way and the other that's more narrow in. It'll change the width of where your wheels sit in relation to the frame. Okay. So once I've chosen my right seat to floor height on this side here, I'm going to grab my 5/8 wrench, or on this demo we're going to use a crescent wrench, and our 1 1/8 wrench or a crescent wrench on the back here. And then I'm just going to tighten up, keeping this piece straight here. I'm just going to tighten up that black nut in the back there. And you're going to feel a little bit of resistance as you keep tightening it, and it starts to really start to rub up against the locking washer. That's normal. So we just keep going. And eventually you're going to start to get complete resistance where you can't actually spin it anywhere. And you really want to make sure that it's tight so that you don't get any wobbling of the axle receiver. Once you've done this side, obviously you're going to move over to the other side of the chair and do the exact same process, keeping in mind again that you want the distance, the amount of threading that you see on the silver piece here to be the same on this side as you do on this side. The last thing you want to remember as anytime you're doing your rear seat to floor height adjustment or your front seat to floor height adjustment, it changes the angle of the frame, which means that you have to do a counter adjustment, which is actually changing the caster journal. The caster journal always needs to be 90 degrees to the ground to make sure that the stem is at 90 degrees so it spins properly when the client's trying to maneuver the chair. So rear seat to floor height and front seat to floor height, anytime you change those heights, make sure that you're doing the counter adjustment, which is your caster journal, and you want to make sure that it's 90 degrees to the ground.